Hello, Claire. Welcome to the Mind Talk podcast. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Claire. I am a Hong Kong national team rower, and I am also the founder of a nonprofit organization called Attention Go, which aims to advocate for neurodiversity in Hong Kong,
Mm.
um, with sport at its core.
So, attention go. Shall we start with that itself?
Sure.
So, tell us a little about attention go.
So I founded it last year, and so I am late diagnosed ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of, I guess, in learning to understand myself and understand what ADHD means to me and what neurodiversity means to me and everything like that. And looking back on, I guess, like my childhood and everything like that, I realized that a lot of what I guess in a way saved me was sport. As somebody, especially growing up, not understanding why I was the way I was, knowing that I was like very different and not being able to figure out why. And I was a lot of the time socially excluded from places. I found a lot of safety within sport itself. And for me, it was, I guess, the one place where I was able to just be free and be myself. Um, I was able to use a lot of like what I know now are ADHD and neurodiverse traits
Mm-hmm.
in sport, things like risk taking, being impulsive, all that kind of stuff. I'm hyper focused and everything. I realized was all rooted, in sport. And so this is why I founded Attention Go, is because I wanted to be able to, I guess, share this with um the broader community, share the benefits and how sports has helped me as a neurodiverse individual, just kind of find myself and find a place and find community and all of that kind of stuff. But again, Attention Go isn't just sport itself. It's rooted in sport, I guess, but what I'm aiming to do with Attention Go is just provide, workshops, talks, events, and anything that kind of advocates and educates around neurodiversity, especially in kind of like adults. I think because more and more people are being diagnosed now with like ADHD and autism and dyslexia and everything like that. So I want to be able to, specifically in Hong Kong and Asia, kind of open up the conversation about that because it is quite, I guess, like a taboo subject in some places, and it is quite stigmatized still.
I've seen feel that in Hong Kong, there's a lot of focus on ADHD and autism, but other neurodiverse conditions are not really talked about. What
Yes.
has been your experience about it?
Yeah, so I definitely think, I mean, in Hong Kong and I think just kind of globally, ADHD and autism are getting a bit more attention, but it is very important to remember that, neurodiversity isn't just those. There's, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, all of that kind of stuff. I'm again not as knowledgeable in those things, but it's something that, especially with my NGO, that I want to be able to kind of highlight a lot more, and speak to a lot more people who have experience, and have these conditions as well, because it's about, creating inclusivity in everything.
Right, right. Could you tell me a little about your experience of ADHD? You mentioned that you were diagnosed late.
Yeah.
So late is how late?
So I got my official diagnosis about, I want to say it's about a year and a half ago to 2 years ago now in
Oh,
the
wow.
UK. Yeah,
Mm.
so it's very recent. My journey to understand, like, to my diagnosis is a bit of a strange one because I was actually like kind of diagnosed in 2014 when I
Mm.
was 19, and it was kind of very much dismissed though because it was one of these at the time I had an eating disorder, and it was in an appointment with I think a psychiatrist or something, and she just did a really quick questionnaire, and she was like, "Oh, I think you probably have ADHD, like you have all of the traits and all of that." And then
Mm.
um I didn't know a lot about ADHD at the time, and it I was made to kind of feel a bit like I didn't really have it kind of by my family. And as soon as she diagnosed me as well, I went straight off to university. So I didn't really have time to like process or understand what it really was.
Hmm.
Um, but so I just kind of, yeah, I just very much dismissed it. And my family were very much like, no, you don't have that. You don't have it. Because we just didn't know much about it. And at the time, I don't think there was a lot out there about what it is. Um, and then a little bit later, so well, a little bit later, 10 years later, nearly, I I went and did a master's in acting at drama school in
Mm,
2022.
mm,
Um, and I had a lot of my classmates in this course were neurodiverse. Um, and I kind of just like in getting to know them and understanding them and like I think learning a lot, seeing a lot of stuff, I guess, like with the algorithm on Instagram and everything. I was getting fed a lot of more information about what ADHD is. Um, and it was like I'd always like since my previous diagnosis, I'd kind of like been like, okay, maybe I have it, maybe I don't. It was always a little bit, I'm not sure. But I just knew something like there was definitely something very different about the way my mind worked.
mm,
And yeah, and just understanding like kind of my course mates and everything and kind of speaking to them a lot more about what ADHD is and what autism is and everything like that. I was just like, okay, maybe I do have it. Let's go and try and actually like properly get a diagnosis now. And then that kind of because I was doing it through kind of Psychiatry UK and NHS, which I mean is a free service, but also the waiting list was just so long. So from being referred, it took about a year until I had my or a year and a half until I had my um psychiatrist appointment. Um and then yeah, and then finally got that diagnosis.
To me, it sounds like going to university for your master's course almost gave you that community
Yeah.
and helped you become part of something. And you found, because you've mentioned it few times, right? I always felt like I was different, and that community kind of gave you a sense of belonging.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think because it was a drama school as well, I mean, a lot of actors, a lot of as actors are oh yeah, so like that's another thing. I'm also a professional actor. That's what I'm trained in, outside of sport. So a lot of actors are very, very neurodiverse, and I think that kind of helps us though with our creativity and everything like that. Um, and yeah, it did give me very much like a community. And I think the one of the things I'd absolutely loved about drama school was that it's a place where everyone's allowed to be vulnerable. Um, and in that, it was a place where we could all be ourselves and not afraid to be ourselves. And we didn't need to hide who we were. And I think that's kind of what helped me as well.
Hmm. You could all be vulnerable and you didn't have to hide who you were. I think
Yeah.
that's a very profound statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hear like as if you always had to be someone you were not growing up.
Yeah. I definitely think growing up, because I grew up in Hong Kong and there's a lot of pressure to do things a certain way and to always get good results. And, growing up for me, it was very much like your life was almost planned out for you. So, it's like, okay, you go. Like, I mean, when I was in primary school, I knew what secondary school I was going to go to. When I was in secondary school, it was like, I didn't even know it was like university wasn't an option until I think like halfway through secondary school or something. I always just like growing up assumed that you go secondary school, you go university, and then you work. Like I thought university was compulsory. And then I moved to the UK for boarding school for my sixth form, and that's when I kind of I mean, I think I figured it out before, but that was when I was like, oh, so like there are other options outside of university. I can do other things. And um yeah, also just because I never got like the good grades that everyone else got, and I was always being told that um I always got the comment of like she's super smart but she doesn't apply herself to work.
Yeah.
So for me, that as a kid, that was very much trying my absolute best.
Mm.
It just made me feel like I was just stupid or something because, and you do get labeled lazy and not hardworking and all this kind of stuff. And it does, when people keep telling you that, it does make you feel like, oh, maybe that's just the way I am, which growing up was super frustrating because like people could see as well that I was trying my hardest. Yeah, it never seemed to be hard enough.
I sense like you experienced a lot of judgment coming from the elders in your school community and things like that.
Yeah, I would definitely like the elders, and I think also just you compare yourself to your friends as well or your peers at school, and it's hard when you see your peers and things kind of getting the good grades and you see, the teachers giving them compliments and stuff like that, and then you're just not getting it yourself. But in another sense, like this is how I knew that sports was so good for me because I was always getting what I wanted from my other teachers in my other classes. I was always getting in PE, where my teachers were always complimenting me and always saying, oh, she's really good at this. She's risk taking, everything that you need to like do sports and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And how was it with your peers in a way? Because all the judgment that was coming was about, she's lazy, she doesn't apply herself, things like that. That can be really heartbreaking for a child, right? But with growing up with peers, did
Yeah.
you also feel different, or was it?
I think yeah, I felt different. I think in primary school it wasn't so bad,
Mm,
because I think kids are so much less judgmental when you're in primary school. You just get along with anyone.
mm,
But I definitely noticed the switch when we moved into secondary school.
mm,
And I think from what I've read, especially in like girls, ADHD becomes more prevalent during puberty. I'm not sure why. It's just and don't quote me on this, I could be completely wrong, but I definitely
mhm,
noticed that like there was definitely a change from kind of going in from like year 6 to year 7, where I very much struggled socially and struggled just to kind of, it was like almost I couldn't quite keep up with everyone else.
mm.
A lot of like I was in a way felt, and I still do feel a lot younger than my age because everyone else was kind of progressing as they should be, forming their little cliques and like just being normal teenagers where I like just wasn't really. I definitely stood out. And I think as well when you go into secondary school, there's so much going on and you're trying to fit in with everyone else. And my mind was so like overloaded with just everything that it was very hard to kind of, I guess, like mask everything as well. And I just was
Right.
so overwhelmed with everything. I did face like a lot of bullying in my first 2 years of secondary school.
Mm,
Uh, and I think, yeah, a lot of it was just, I guess it's a lot of like stuff that's built up from as a kid being told you're a certain way and then now not knowing how to act. And then yeah, I think those first 2 years of secondary school are crucial for like socialization, which I did not really get. So I think through most of secondary school it was hard. I mean, I had friends, but it was definitely a struggle because I just, and even into my through school and into my adult life, it was just never fully understanding like my identity or what my personality was.
going back to the time when you were almost diagnosed, but then that was not considered. Uh, when you were diagnosed, it must have been almost reassuring that I have a name to what I'm going through,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But then it was taken away from you.
Yeah.
So how was that experience?
It was interesting because I was like, at the time that I was that I had that kind of diagnosis, it was I had a very shallow understanding of what ADHD was. I just knew it was like lack of attention and um occasionally like hyper focus on things and stuff like that, but I didn't realize how deep it went. Um, so it was nice to have a name to it, but I think because I didn't have that much knowledge of it, it was kind of like I still wasn't able to understand a lot of my behaviors or anything like that, which is kind of why eventually it just got dismissed. And because like it wasn't a formal diagnosis or anything, I wasn't able to get any help or anything through educate like university and things like that. So it just kind of, yeah, it definitely just fizzled out. And I remember it did get to a point where I was like, oh, I might have ADHD, but I don't really know. So yeah. Um, so then I just kind of, I guess, yeah, it kind of just went back into me going, oh, I'm just lazy. I'm not smart. Like, obviously it's just like me that's wrong. I'm like, there's something very like, yeah, it's just me. I'm just wrong. I'm just not able to do anything like the others. Um, so yeah,
Having said all of this, you have gone on to do your master's.
yeah,
And yeah, but one of the thing that I hear very regularly with those with ADHD is not being able to be on time, or not being able to complete their work. Um, how was that experience going through that? Because you were not diagnosed, you probably didn't get any of the is it sanctions they
yeah,
say, like
like
extra time?
yeah, I didn't get any of that. So for me, well, for ADHD, it's quite interesting. So we're not motivated by like what a lot of other people are motivated by. So one of the big things for me is that it's kind of like pressure, as in like, um, if something is due tomorrow, I can like completely finish it in 3 hours. Like even if it's like a month's worth of work, I can do that in 3 hours.
Okay.
Um, so it was weird, especially I noticed this like looking back in my first year of university. I remember just like and it's a weird thing, executive dysfunction, because you know you have the work to do and you know you need to do it, and you can't stop thinking about it as well. Like, and the more you think about it, the like more painful it gets, but you just can't physically do it. I think a good way of explaining it is like I saw a video once of somebody saying like, imagine like that I lit a stove and I asked you to put your hand on it, like just do it. Like you can do it, but your brain and your mind is basically going, no, 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 don't do it. Like you kind of physically can't do it. And that's kind of the same as like what executive function dysfunction feels like, is like you've got your hand over that fire and like no matter what you do, you just can't put your hand in it. And that's what it feels like, not like when you have that work and it's there, but like you just can't physically do it. And it's not until like the absolute last minute that you're like, oh crap, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. And so like it's really weird because like when I was at university in my undergraduate, I actually came out with a first. And I remember like anytime any of my coursework was due in or anything like that, even if, I would spend like 4 hours, I would do little bits of it and then probably like the last like 70% of it the day before, and still somehow come out with like decent grades on the coursework. But this is where sport kind of ties back into everything. So I actually almost dropped out of my first year of university because I wasn't doing any sport or anything like that. I was recovering from an eating disorder. Like physically I was like healthy, as they say, like physically I was fine, but mentally I had not recovered from that eating disorder, so I was very much struggling. And I very nearly dropped out of university in that first year. It wasn't until in my second year was when I learned to row, which is the sport that now I train in full time. So in my second year of university I learned to row, and it changed everything for me. It gave me, because I had to follow a program, and it was kind of high level sport. And I got good really quickly because it's just one of those sports that I think like if you're neurodiverse, like you can, because you can become so obsessed with it, which is what happened to me. It can actually be really good for you. There are bads to it as well, but like for me, especially through that part of university, it was like, okay, well, I know I got to train first thing in the morning, and then I've got 3 hours until my class. In those 3 hours, oh, let's go to the library and do some studying or something, go to class. Okay. And then now I know I've got, oh, training in the evening or something, and then go to that. And it just gave me that structure back into my day that um, I definitely needed. And because when I went to boarding school in the UK, I kind of stopped doing sports. I'd always been a really sporty kid growing up. Um, like can't even count how many different sports I tried. But I just loved being like moving and doing things. So that was taken away from me for a couple of years when I was in sixth form. And I think probably added to kind of things like having my eating disorder and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, so then my second year of university learned to row, and instantly, my grades just got better and better and better. So came out with like top marks in the undergrad. But yeah, I mean, still definitely would have the last minute thing, very much so. And it when I think when I started to understand what it was having, like what it meant to have ADHD and what it was, that's when I kind of actually learned how to, not for everything, but how to manage my workload a little bit more.
Mm.
So I actually have two master's degrees as well, which is
Oh,
kind of cool. I have a master's in film production and a master's in acting. So when I did my master's in acting, that was obviously when I kind of knew I had ADHD then. I kind of learned that I could, especially with the written work, it was a lot harder with like kind of learning lines and rehearsing and stuff like that. But with my written work, I'd actually figured if I like set myself mental dates of when I need things to be done. So I was like, okay, for my dissertation, it was like I need this many words done by this day, this many words done by this day. I want to be finished by this day, which was like I think I set my finish date to 2 weeks before the deadline,
mm,
just so I knew that I could like have a nice, like if there were any issues or anything in those 2 weeks, I could just like chill and like do whatever. But it also meant that like I was done before the deadline and I could just enjoy my life. So that's what really helped me. But also it was very much like it was because I was hyper focusing on it. So I couldn't do anything else until I was finished with that. So yeah, it's like it's goods and bads, I guess. Like, yeah.
what I'm hearing is sports almost trained you backwards because I have to do sports. I have to set this time to, finish my work, go to class. Kind of taught you time management as well.
Yeah, definitely. It helped me with a lot of time management and stuff like that. I mean, even now, training full time, we have 3 sessions a day, and then I'm just like, okay. I mean, I do need to rest between sessions, but I'm also it gives me time blocks. So that I'm like, oh, I've got a couple hours here where I can do this. Or I can have a rest at this point. In this half an hour, I can have a nap and then I can do something else. So yeah, I think it's just because it's all with sports schedules, it's so blocked out that
Mm,
like it just helps my brain kind of figure out when I can do things, and it's less fluid, which
mm,
is really good. But yeah, I mean, as I've said, there are kind of downsides to it as well. Because for a while, especially when I wasn't a full-time athlete, when I was just rowing for like rowing clubs and like, or even like in my during my first masters, this happened where I got so hyper focused on rowing that nothing else mattered. Like actually one of the reasons I did my first master's degree was actually so I could just keep rowing. So it was very hard to balance everything at that point.
hey, wow. So from not being the ideal student in school to going on to complete two master's degree.
Yeah.
and being an actor. So did you work as an actor or as a film producer because you have two master's degrees?
Yeah, well, I worked kind of like self-employed freelance within like film industry for a bit, realized that I kind of preferred being in front of the camera to behind the camera.
Mhm.
So um and it was again like I think this is one of the pluses as well of having being neurodiverse, having ADHD is that I'd always wanted to be an actor growing up, and it was very much like my family were a bit like, I mean, yeah, against it. That it's not a real. You get the whole, oh, it's not a real job. You can't make any money from it. All this kind of stuff, which is kind of why I kind of went and did the film production masters, even though my undergrad is in performing arts as well. But it was also why I did the film production masters. And in school, I'd always done kind of media studies, film stuff. And I did that in a sense to please my family to kind of say, oh, well, I got this, which is, I can do this, which is more, there's a lot more work in it, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, going on to do, sorry, what was the question? This is the ADHD show, right? Oh,
So,
I remember now what I was saying. Okay. So
okay.
it was basically I'd always wanted to act, and it was like even in high school I'd auditioned for drama school and didn't get in, but it was one of those things that like it always been on my mind, and it was something that I had to do. And so I always say that like with one of the positives of kind of being neurodiverse and having ADHD is the fact that like I will not let stuff go. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I will keep trying to do something until I do it. So like being an actor, I was told I couldn't do that. Even in secondary school, I got really bad grades in drama because I was just I had no confidence in myself. So um, my drama teachers, like I remember my drama teacher in Hong Kong basically saying I wasn't very good. Um, and I got my lowest GCSE grades. I think I got my lowest A level grades in drama. But I was determined to prove people wrong. And so, yeah, did the thing, got to drama school, graduated drama school, lived the actor life for a while in London, got an agent, did some jobs, which was so much fun. Very, very, I would definitely say very stressful. Just and then it was kind of like at the time as well, I realized that because um because I was rowing as well while I was working as an actor, and I realized that if I'd put as much effort into kind of my acting work as I did in my rowing, that I'd probably be doing really well as an actor, which is kind of why I realized that maybe I should give the rowing a go for a bit and then maybe return to acting after.
So from acting, you went on to become doing rowing.
Yeah,
And
that's a weird story as well,
yes,
actually.
and now you represent Hong Kong. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what happened was I had just finished my first master's degree
Mhm.
in film production and was kind of working as an actor, freelance film producer in London for a couple months. And then COVID happened
Mhm.
um, in 2020, and I was in London. They went into lockdown. I decided that because my family live in Hong Kong, my parents live in Hong Kong, I decided I'd come back to Hong Kong for a bit, which was meant to be temporarily, because I thought it would blow over in a few months to just, be in Hong Kong because I was like, oh, I don't know when I'm gonna next be back in Hong Kong, so I'll come back. Um, then somehow managed to, because at the time I'd never considered like professional sports or anything, somehow managed to end up on the Hong Kong team in those few months, which was amazing. I ended up getting to train with Hong Kong from 2020 to 2022. Um, I didn't really get to compete because it was during COVID, but it was a really cool experience just being part of the squad and being able to train with the squad. Definitely didn't have an athlete's mindset at the time. It was like I burned out super quickly. I actually ended up quitting rowing after
Oh,
that because it was very hard for me. Um, and then in 2022, I'd had my mindset kind of just be like, okay, when I go back to London, I'm going to go drama school. I'm going to get into drama school. And I didn't even know if I was going to get into drama school. I was doing auditions while we were on a training camp at the beginning of 2022. And I
mm,
remember saying, like, I don't know what's going to happen if I don't get into drama school because I don't want to row at the end of this year. Because I was very much like so tired of rowing at that point. I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. If I don't get into drama school, I don't know what's going to happen. But, I did. And it was I kind of learned that year to just kind of be like, it will all work out eventually. Like things will work out eventually. And it did. Um, but yeah, I actually quit rowing in 2022 and it was in 2020. It was the end of 2020. So that was the beginning of 2022 when I was like, like Mayish. That was like, I'm done with rowing. Then the end of 2022 was like, I joined a local rowing club just to kind of like have a bit of fun rowing, not really do anything serious. And I just had some absolutely amazing coaches there who just kind of very slowly but quickly were just they just got me back into the sport because especially like the difference in culture in the UK and Hong Kong as well. And they were just the way they coached and the way they were so supportive of everything. And one of them could actually see that I did have ADHD, even though I wasn't diagnosed at the time. She knew. Um, and she was, just super inclusive and like the way they coached was very athlete centered, um, and everything like that. So quickly restored my love for rowing. Um, and then yeah, in kind of what 2024 was when I was working as an actor, but I was still rowing. And it was kind of when I decided that I'm because of my coaches and I'd started to do stuff with like charities who really want to push for a better culture within sport and a more compassionate culture in sport and just kind of learning a lot more about myself, becoming more confident in myself and understanding my ADHD and talking more about my mental health and everything like that. It helped me kind of realize maybe I'm going to give this another go and really try and row for Hong Kong, but also be super serious about it and try and do it for myself and do it to try and become the best athlete I can be and push myself as hard as I can because and one of the things was that I had to kind of tell myself when I came back to Hong Kong to row for Hong Kong was that I need to never lose sight of my values and what the sport means to me because as soon as rowing and the sport loses its meaning for me, that's when things get hard. And the culture in kind of Hong Kong and Asia is very much a results-based culture. It's all based on money, results, all of that kind of stuff, which is for me because I spent so long doing the sport without getting paid and putting all of my money into the sport. And like the reason I row is very much because of what it means to me, what the sport has done for me, the community has given me. It teaches me a lot about how hard and how much I can push myself. Um, and I always just think for me, it's all about the process for me. If I always say that a medal is a consequence of what I've been doing. My goal in this sport, obviously, I have a goal to my goals. I want to win medals and stuff, but over everything else, my goal is just to be the best athlete I can be. And I was like, when I come back to the Hong Kong squad, because I trialed and everything and got in, which I was super happy about, in 2024. And yeah, it's just like coming back was like, okay, I need to still be true to myself and still make sure that every time I go out, every time I race, every time we do any testing and stuff, um, I remember what my why is essentially. And yeah, it definitely has been hard being back and kind of having that different mindset. It's gotten me into a number of arguments and a lot of I guess like times where I've questioned why I'm here. But it's, I've just had an amazing amount of support as well from friends and people, family, and, just people who've been watching my journey as well. So, yeah.
So now you have started, you've gone from primary to doing a double master's, then being on the Hong Kong team for rowing.
Yeah.
You've also started your charity where you talk about sport for those with neurodiverse conditions.
Yeah.
So, what is your one message for the listeners?
Oof. I think my message really is just about keeping your mind open,
Mhm.
being aware that everyone is different, and just allowing yourself to get to know everyone around you, knowing that everyone has a story. Um, Everyone wants to be treated with kindness, and yeah, just just be open and just be inclusive for everyone.
Be inclusive and be open. Thank you so much, Claire Burley, for coming on the podcast and sharing your life story with us.
Thank you so much for having me.